Hi, I've got another update on the Dragon's Den issue that's been rumbling on since mid-January. I was a little bit slow off the mark in terms of submitting a Freedom of Information request to the BBC. But when it became clear that things were going to be rumbling on for a long time and certain people's accounts of what had happened were massively different to what it seemed, I thought, okay, so on the 5th of February, I submitted a Freedom of Information request to the BBC to see what went on behind the scenes in terms of due diligence. Because surely, if they'd done any due diligence, they would have realised that the Society for Acupuncture in the UK says that ear seeds do not treat or cure any illnesses. And on the date of the broadcast, that is exactly what was said on the website. So I got this in my inbox 23rd of February it says, but I literally got it a couple of days ago. So what I asked was, can I please ask for all documentation around the Dragon's Den production team and producers' decision to include Giselle Boxer and AccuSeeds within the programme in January 2024. I believe this documentation should include all matters relating to due diligence. Now, before I show you the rest of the Freedom of Information response, I think we can all agree that Dragon's Den is a business reality TV show. I personally wouldn't use the term arts, journalism, or literature to describe Dragon's Den. So I've just said that. Wait 2 seconds. Okay, so here it says, if held, the information you have requested is held for the purposes of art, journalism, or literature. The Freedom of Information Act provides that the BBC is not obliged to disclose this type of information, and we will therefore not be disclosing any information requested by you on this occasion. And further down, it says information that relates to the BBC's output. So literally any programme is BBC output. That makes no sense. Or information that supports and is closely associated with these creative activities is considered to be held by the BBC for purposes of art, journalism, or literature. Such information is held by the BBC and other public service broadcasters falls outside the scope of the Freedom of Information Act. So in other words, they can broadcast absolutely anything they like with minimal due diligence because it's covered by the Freedom of Information Act. Don't think that's true. The limited application of the FOI Act described above recognises that the BBC and other public service broadcasters can preserve their independence by ensuring information about matters including editorial decisions about programming and budgets allocated to such programming are not subject to undue scrutiny. Undue. It is important that the BBC is an independent and impartial news organisation. Right, this is the bit. So what I was going to do was because both Emmy Foggy Dog and Stripey Lightbulb are businesses. As such, we pay a membership fee to the ICO, Information Commissioner's Office, and I thought, well, I might as well get my money's worth. I'll see if I can contact the ICO, whatever. Apparently individuals can also do it, but why am I paying a membership if I don't get something slightly extra? So, that in my opinion. So I contacted them and they said, we will not look at anything that hasn't been sent to the authority, which in this case would be the BBC, to deal with a further complaint. Right, so it's basically saying, don't come to us, you've got to go back to the BBC and say, I'm not happy with your response. So that's exactly what I was going to do. And then brain fog cleared earlier and I read this letter properly. And it literally says, the BBC does not offer an internal review when the information requested is not covered by the Act. If you disagree with our decision, you can appeal to the Information Commissioner, which is what I was going to do. Contact details are this. Please note that should the Information Commissioner's Office decide that the Act does cover this information, exemptions under the Act might then apply. In other words, bog off, you're not getting any information out of us. So, so there you go. So I'm kind of disappointed, but in a funny way. I can see the humour. It's like, what? This is so ridiculous. You've got a research team to make sure that nothing goes wrong with, and you obviously you're supposed to vet your applicants, do due diligence. They were aware that another company had warned, hang on, the claims that are made on this website aren't correct. This company is currently going through legal action. So they've got questions to answer here. We need to know what due diligence the BBC did before they aired the episode of Dragon's Den with AccuSeeds on it. And Giselle Boxer has actually said, yeah, I've made £90,000. And the BBC coming back and saying, oh, well, after the event, we put a warning across the screen for like 10 seconds saying, this is not medical advice, or, you know, this is not a treatment or a cure. On the evening of the broadcast, a hell of a lot of ME and other chronic illness patients saw that, were sucked in and bought these AccuSeeds. It was false advertising. And I can say that because Trading Standards have said it, and other agencies. So they know that there's something wrong here. And since then, there's been numerous caveats added left, right and centre. There's been stuff in the national press where they've said the staff on Dragon's Den have been warned by the BBC about standards. It's like, yeah. So if you know that you've done something wrong, why are you not being open and transparent about it? If there's any lawyers watching this, please let me know what my next steps could be, because that's ridiculous. I do feel like getting in touch with the Information Commissioner's Office saying, this is what the BBC say. However, is that right? Giselle Boxer has been coming out fighting recently, and this was her, I don't know if it's the latest, but this is one of her latest updates. For clarification, she says, if you watch the Dragon's Den pitch, not once did I say that ear seeds cured my ME. I listened to this episode live, and the words that came out of my mouth was, I cannot believe she's just said that ear seeds cure her ME. And it's not just a case of me mishearing. There are thousands of people that heard the same thing. So that's gaslighting. Ear seeds are not snake oil. Yes, they are. They're a supplement to an acupuncture treatment. They can't be used as anything like a treatment on their own. The AccuSeeds website has always included disclaimers. No, it hasn't. Your social media and parts of your website still say that this helped with your ME and your chronic fatigue syndrome. And a BBC researcher encouraged me to apply for the show, as they do with 50% of businesses. I went through a rigorous application process, not that rigorous if you were going through legal action. I went with 2 months of due diligence, 2 months of due diligence before pitching to the Dragons. So why can't we see evidence of that due diligence? Because it doesn't exist? Anyway, I've taken some pro bono lawyer advice, and they've said, unfortunately, there will always be they're called snake oil salesmen because there is no scientific proof that any of this stuff works. You know, there will always be snake oil salesmen, whether they're people that say exercise cures ME. We know that scientifically that's wrong. People that say just talking about it, we're talking therapies will cure you. Neuro-linguistic programming, lightning process, nice warns against that. And they've said there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to tackle it every time one of these crops up. But I do not believe that the BBC is not going to take any ownership of this. Because most snake oil salesmen do not get a prime time slot to make £90,000 in 2 weeks. So it's not the fact that she's made money off it, it's the fact that she's made money by saying in that pitch, I don't care what Giselle says, that was the impression it gave, word for word. this cured my ME. Because if it didn't cure her ME, why did she mention it in her pitch? She could have just said, I was chronically sick, and to try and get my life back, I set up my own business. But she didn't say that. What she said was, I had ME. And through ear seeds and this and that, I recovered. Anyway, so the quest for due diligence evidence continues. If anybody's got any ideas on where else I can go to see this due diligence, what exactly have the BBC got to hide? If they did due diligence, just share it, please. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much for listening.